About 8 years ago, I took a road trip from the East Coast to Kansas with a friend to visit her grandparents. It was supposed to be a fun trip, but as we got closer to their house, things started to get weird. About 2 hours away, my friend started nervously talking about strange things she'd seen around the house when she was younger. She was getting visibly anxious as she mentioned these things. Things she said her family had seen but her grandparents never did. At first, I thought it was just childhood imagination, and I tried to calm her down, assuring her that what she remembered as a child was probably just her mind making up stories. But she was insistent, almost panicked, that these experiences were real. 2 hours later, we finally arrived at her grandparents' home, and by that point, I was completely wiped out from the long drive. Her grandmother greeted us and showed me to a back bedroom, but just as she was about to close the door, she stopped, looked at me and said, "Maybe you shouldn't stay in this room." She then escorted me to another bedroom, which I thought was a little strange, but I was too tired to question it. That night, I crashed into bed, exhausted. The next evening on the second night, things started to feel off. It was around 11 p.m. My friend had fallen asleep on the couch while watching TV, and I was in an adjacent bedroom. From where I was lying, I could see her on the couch and everything seemed fine. I nodded off, but I suddenly woke up to the sight of an old man standing in the doorway. He had a vague resemblance to my friend's grandfather, but wasn't him. The man was grey, almost ghostly, with a kind of stillness to him. He was facing my friend, watching her sleep, and I was frozen in place. I wasn't sure what to do, but instinctively, I decided to get up and confront the old man. I tried to move, but something slammed me back down into the bed. It felt like an invisible force was holding me there. Every time I tried to rise, I was shoved back down with the same force, as though I wasn't allowed to move. As this was happening, a voice repeated in my head, "Put a seal on the door." The words echoed in my mind over and over, and I couldn't make sense of them. At some point, everything snapped back to normal. I suddenly woke up for real, and it was 3 a.m. Everything was as it should be. The old man was gone, my friend was still asleep on the couch, and nothing seemed unusual. I rubbed my eyes, trying to make sense of what I had just experienced, thinking maybe it had been a dream or some strange sleep paralysis. I started pacing around the room, trying to calm myself down and figure out if it was real or not. Then, when I looked over at my friend, I saw her eyes open and she whispered, "You saw it." I froze, not knowing what to say. I asked her how she knew, and she just nodded. "I knew," she said, like it was something we'd both been through before. Without saying much more, I told her we had to leave. "Get in the car, I can't be here right now." We spent the next 4 hours sitting in a Walmart parking lot talking. She told me more about her family's history with the house, how strange things had happened over the years, and how everyone had seen these things except her grandparents. We compared notes, and the more she spoke, the more I felt like there were layers to this experience that I wasn't fully understanding. It was clear we were both shaken, but by the time we calmed down, I knew I needed to go back to the grandparents' house. When we returned, her grandparents were waiting for us, and I immediately told them what had happened, everything I had experienced that night. I expected them to be concerned or shocked, but instead, they seemed almost nonchalant. Her grandmother simply said, "Yeah, that's strange. We usually seal our doors with a prayer at night, but with all the excitement, we must have forgotten. All the kids have mentioned seeing things, but we've never seen anything ourselves. We're sorry you had to go through that." I was stunned. In that moment, I wasn't sure what to think. How could they know about the experiences without acknowledging them? How could they say sorry, as if it was just a normal part of life? I still don't know what happened that night. I didn't drink, I wasn't tired, and I didn't have any medical conditions that could explain it. It wasn't a dream or a hallucination. I felt it, as real as anything I've ever experienced. When I tell people about it now, I get that look of skepticism, the one that tells me they don't believe me. But I know what I saw, what I felt. The experience was so vivid, so indistinguishable from reality, that I can't shake it. I don't know what it means, but it definitely changed the way I view things. I don't know if it was supernatural, psychological, or something else entirely, but I'll never forget that night. Please don't forget to follow, like, share and subscribe to continue with us to discover new stories.